yesterday when I went with Mom to her appointment, and then I had to drive 90 miles to my doctor's appointment. I ate 4 cookies and had complete guilt around them, and then like.
Where's the guilt coming from?
Judging the food.
Oh, so you're dieting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then.
So why are you dieting? So let's just go through that. What's the point of the dieting? How's that working? How's that working?
That's not working at all.
Well, oh my God, no way. No, diets are supposed to work. Like, I don't get it.
And I've been thinking a lot about why I'm doing that, and
especially since the track record is what, 0% success?
Right.
And actual, not just 0%, because that would mean that nothing has changed. You're neutral, right? 0 has happened.
Right.
It's actually, what is it doing? Look at your body. How did you get here? How did this happen? The evidence is showing that your relationship with food is far more dysfunctional and excessive. And that's what they found across the board with research, studies and research for decades. I mean, you have personal evidence, this is how this works. The fantasy is that, oh yeah, you just control your food and your whole life will improve like so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it seems real. It seems real.
I know, and I like.
You'll get control.
I was really. What?
It's like the illusion you can have some sense of control. I did the same thing.
Oh.
But the truth of what happens is it activates this primitive need and desire to eat. Plus, on top of that, when you moralize food as good or bad, like it's some religion, you end up with continuous guilt and shame and ultimately end up overeating anyways. Because the illusion is that if you have bad food, you might as well eat all bad food because you're going to hell. Today, at least, right? Today, at least, you ruined it. So then you eat way more that day because the next day you're going to try to eliminate it all. So you might as well have eaten the whole thing of cookies.
That's exactly how my day went yesterday.
I understand that. I mean, you shouldn't be surprised.
I was really upset about my mom. About her doctor's appointment.
Yeah. So there's two things. I'm just really quick. I want to make sure before we go forward, I do want you to speak. I do want to hear what you have to say, but I'm going to give you the bones and structure of what you're about to tell me. Because you're the same as everybody. Your history is the same as everybody's. We've been through this. But it's important that you see it, right? It's like clearly the work that we've done in the past made progress, but you still held on to the fantasy. And we knew that. That was like you're still holding on to this fear of your body, fear of your health, fear of, death, fear itself, right? Attached to your weight, attached to food. So there's two big parts to this that I've seen more so on the binge eating side of this relationship with food and your body. There is this relationship with your body that is fear based, right? And it's not just one fear. We're talking. So before it was fear of other people's disapproval. Fear of not being seen as good enough. Fear of your husband not being attracted to you. So there's that human-to-human contact fear, right? Fear of rejection.
Right.
Fear of not being attractive. Fear that other people will judge you. Do you feel like that has been overcome?
Yes.
Okay, because there's more fears. What I find as people get over that, they still have this brainwashing around health.
Yes.
Right? Do you remember when we did that round of HCG where you were losing weight, eating hardly any food? but yet your inflammation was higher.
Yep.
Okay. But the brainwashing and the indoctrination that you've heard from the diet industry, the radical diet industry, is that the food causes that inflammation. The weight causes that inflammation. But yet you were losing all this weight eating zero food, and the food you were eating was basically meat, vegetables, and very little fruit, right? And your inflammation went up.
Yep.
How's that happen? Right? Anyways, my point is there's fear of the body. Hey, so what has happened and what I see happens is there's that foundation of fear of my body. If you didn't have fear of your body, Michelle, really soak this in and think about this. If you didn't have fear of your body, would you have fear of food? Would you think those cookies were bad? Would you have guilt? Like you burned down, someone's house and watch them burn in it. I mean, I could see you have guilt doing that, but guilt around cookies. If you didn't have this fear of the body, would you feel that you have done something wrong by eating cookies? 4 of them, just 4. No. Right? So do you see there's a secondary, so my point is there is the primary issue, which is fear of the body under multiple contexts, right? Mm-hmm. Not just one. So it sounds like for you, is there another one in there besides fear of people, disapproval, abandonment, seeing you as less than, which we've targeted, fear of health, fear of death, which is what that comes down to, right? Is there anything else in there? Fear that you're going to get bigger. All of that is truly, would you say that comes from fear of health, or what are your thoughts? Are you disgusted with your body, just you, yourself?
Sometimes.
Okay, where it's...
Sometimes, like, when it gets in the way, like when I can't, things are harder because my body gets in the way. Okay, Okay, got it. So you victimize yourself. You feel sorry for yourself. So it's when you feel sorry for yourself. Because I did food on my food. Well, I think it's important for you to hear the truth so that you aren't... Yeah. So the body isn't, poor me, my body is making it hard for me to move. Oh, hold on. Who's moving? What's moving? What's providing that movement? The neurological capacity, the joint, the musculature. What's doing that for you? Is it you that's doing that? Or is it the body that's doing it for you? Yeah. Just a thought, just to see that perception. I'm not trying to guilt you, but I want you to really recognize the limitation in your perception that is creating your own problems. Right? The limits. Like, if you continue to perceive yourself as a victim of the body, it'll just keep getting worse. Well, again, what happens to your relationship with food? And keep in mind, the victim position that you're taking with your body is always that it is not thin enough. It doesn't even matter if you lost 50 pounds. You would still feel pissed off about it. It's still limited. The perception is limitation. So how can you ever, if you don't know how to shift your perception around, it's a good enough. It is good enough. Right? If you cannot have that shift, what makes you think you're going to know how to have that shift when it's 50 pounds lighter? You've had decades of experience losing. I don't know, how much weight have you lost in your lifetime if you added it all up? Would you say you've lost 1,000 pounds? A couple thousand pounds? Yeah. Has it ever been good enough? And even if you did reach the golden statue of idolized thinness, was it ever really good enough? No, because then, there's this little piece, like, Oh yeah, well now you have to micromanage food to even such a higher degree just to try to hold that statue of worship me, I finally made to heaven. You don't really get any freedom because you're so fixated, self-centered around how to maintain and self-defense with defense, like paranoia. And what did that do to your relationship with food? Kabamo, binging in the closet, trying to hide it. You remember all that?
Yep.
You've forgotten. You forgot it. You forgot the misery. You fantasize. This is like a battered wife. You went back to your husband that beats the living shit out of you, right? You forgot about that part. Oh, but he loves me and I feel so protected. And he's like kind of nice sometimes, and that's what I really want. But it came with all the hell, obsessive compulsiveness. Don't forget the guilt, constantly feeling like you're a horrible human being, eating a cookie. What belief system is so wretched that the followers actually feel guilty about eating cookies? I mean, think about that. You're better off getting into some radical religion. So because this one's worse. You can't even eat a cookie without feeling like a terrible human being. I mean, really get perspective around what you've the cult you went back into. Is it really better? Is it really, really better? I'm sure it's a distraction, right? Might be like a distraction, but whoa, dude, you're better off smoking cigarettes. No joke. Like, really, if you want to compare things that are toxic, cigarettes are so much better for you. Just saying, pick and choose how you want to die. Real thought, real think. Isn't it funny when you hear that? You're like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back, because I think the clarity for you, this is such an awesome opportunity, Michelle. I really, really believe it. For you to have clarity. Like clear ass clarity around this, how this has been such a dysfunctional, toxic, dark relationship that you've had with thin supremacy, that cult, a real cult mentality around your body being your persecutor. Realize the whole thing is that your body is persecuting you. Your body is what's ruining your life. Therefore, fixing it with our way of thinking and dieting will get you the pearly gates of heaven. Here, worship this idol of thinness. It will make your life better. But until you fix your body, your life will continue to be miserable. So it's like a way to blame all of your hardship on your body.
What I do.
Well, it's oh yeah, and even though you've had direct experience with inflamed RA as you're losing weight, eating hardly anything, it's still. I mean, again, can you see this as an indoctrination? Like, it's like you never. What has again? Is it your body that's inflaming the RA, or is it your perceptions around work, your father, your husband, all of that?
It's absolutely the perception of work.
Why isn't that negotiable? Because your way of dealing is to say, I got to control my food because my body, right? I got to control my food. Right. Let's just take a mile back. We're taking a mile out. It's like, let's go up into the sky so you can see what's going on. Let's see the forest for the trees right now. Because right now you're blaming the forest, these few things, for what you're experiencing. Right? And you gotta be able to say, okay, if I continue to blame my body for how it is, and by the way, this is truly one of the biggest roadblocks to my clients who are binge eaters, who have a body that is morbidly obese. And can you see why? I mean, it's so understandable. Your clear outcome is a physical body with ailments, right?
Yeah.
Perceptions of limitations, because really it's relative, right? But it's
Right.
still, nonetheless, your perception is such that it is limiting. I have a client over 400 pounds right now who's got all sorts of problems, can't go out in public, can't get a job, can't work. She has the same exact viewpoint you do. It's relative. And her resolution, it doesn't matter what weight she's going to be, because you know as well as I do, she could lose 100 pounds and she will still believe that her body is not good enough. In fact, at some point, her weight that she's at right now was an atrocity that should never happen. Her highest weight was less than this at some point. And she thought that highest weight was horrendous. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. I know.
And prior to that, she was at less weight and thought that was horrendous, right? So in relation to where she's at now, how is she supposed to not feel victimized by what has happened?
Yeah.
Right? How did you get here, Michelle? How did you get here? How did she get there?
By playing a victim and
of what?
Abusing
of what?
Victim. Okay, what am I a victim of?
Well, what's the foundation of, so we're just focusing in on the body and your food, right? Because we could say you're a victim of your life, your father, your mother, your siblings, your kids, the farm, the job. I mean, it just layers and layers of for me that are occurring, right? But I want to hone in on what are you, in specific to your issues with food. What are you a victim of? And it's okay if you don't have the answer. I'm just trying to get you to see this. Again, give you that vantage point.
Of my own dogma around food and the diet industry, and
that's secondary. Good job, you're right, but that's true, but that's a secondary dog. That's a secondary. That wouldn't exist if you weren't a victim of what?
I feel like I am a victim of all of the different health issues I've had.
So where does that, yeah, so that would be a victim of your body.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you weren't a victim of your body in relation to whatever.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
You wouldn't be going to the church of thin supremacy being fed all this anti-food hate mongering. Like, food is your problem, which is now creating a secondary problem. So it's not like you only have one problem, you have multiple. It's just you're not seeing, because you believe your body sucks, and you always have, right? It's bad, it needs to be fixed, it's not good enough, now I have physical ailments, right? Now you believe also, as an effect, that food sucks. So if you want to fix your body that sucks, you have to fix the food that sucks. So do you see how those two? So now you have a secondary problem. So you have more than one. And then you have to implement basically an artificial famine, because you don't live in famine, you live in abundance. You have to create an artificial famine while you live in abundance.
Yeah.
Just how does that sound to you? Does that sound like the best idea? I mean, what do you think human psyche is going to do when you're supposed to create a bubble of famine around a mass amount of food? How's that going to feel? I mean, you see it. Yeah. Get perspective. Let's pull back a mile. How's that sound? Does that sound healthy?
No.
Why? Why is that unhealthy to do to all the people, mostly women, by the way, that are supposed to have thinner bodies? Why are we trying to put them in a bubble or shelter that's see-through, by the way, of famine while you see all the food around you? Why isn't that healthy?
Because it sets you up for a feeling of deprivation.
Well, you're supposed to be able to handle that because your ailments are so horrible. Isn't that the rationale around why it's okay? Yeah, does your brain and all that psych wiring around the need for food give a shit? No. Just because what the body does. It's gonna get food because you're gonna die without food. I mean, the likelihood of death around starvation is much higher and more realistic than the illusion of fear you have around your health. Make sense? Say it again. The fear of, the truth is that you're more likely to die of starvation and nutritional ailments than you are to die of this illusion of unhealth. If it was real, like anaphylactic shock, this would not be hard because your likelihood of death from eating honey or butter or peanut butter for someone like that is much higher than the perception of lacking, right? In this case, your fear of unhealth is far, far less important than the actual truth that you could die of starvation. That's how the brain works. The reality is you could die of starvation in a month. You're not going to die of your ailments in a month. So this need for food is massive. It's, wouldn't you agree, food all of a sudden becomes like all you think about, the most important thing. Yeah, that's that mechanism that's being triggered. So again, put anybody, I don't care who it is, in a bubble of famine. It's an artificial famine. And surround yourself around the abundance of food. Doesn't that sound inhumane? Yeah. All these people around you eating that don't have any fear of food, they don't have any guilt or shame, and they're enjoying their food, and you're looking at them going, how are they doing that? Well, it's because you're supposed to stay in your little famine shelter for your... Right? And then you have this like a third tier consequence of being a victim once again, not being able to eat. While your kids and your husband and whoever gets to eat whatever they want. But no, you're supposed to remain in your third world bubble for health while you're surrounded by food everywhere. And it's easily accessible, right? So it's not like you're locked up in a shelter. It's an illusion. But because you could have anything you want at that table of abundance. It's all right there, but you're just not allowed to eat it, right? So it's this artificial, very weak concept that you shouldn't be eating, and you believe it is so righteous, and that's why there's guilt. If you didn't believe it was healthy or the right thing to do, you wouldn't have guilt when you reach past the bubble and eat a cookie. Right? Yeah. Don't you agree? Well, you clearly don't agree, but you're being so misdirected. Super misdirected. I mean, seriously, you ate 4 cookies yesterday because of the guilt. If you'd stopped dieting, if you just surrendered the whole thing, you could die. You're going to die, actually. I guarantee you're going to die. For sure. At some point, you're going to die. So am I. So let's just accept that right off the bat, okay? Do you really want to die focusing on your fear of death and food and your weight? All while avoiding all of this drama that you keep on thinking is fine, which eventually will kill you. Then what? Oh shit. What have I done? Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, I spend so much time ruminating all this shit and worrying and feeling guilty, and instead of just being present and enjoying
and just enjoying life.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can right now because you're avoiding the real issue, right? So what I found across the board with the binge eaters is there's the foundation of my body sucks. I really have ailments now. It's limiting my life, which is the truth. I shouldn't be eating, but you know what? I'm really pissed off and stressed. So for now, I'm going to eat because tomorrow I'm not going to eat. So this dysfunctional relationship you have with food that's emotionally based is a byproduct of the shame you have with food. So literally, there are still those impulses and feelings that you're trying to avoid around your life that now food has become a distraction or a way to cope, right?
Yeah.
So that's secondary. So now you have this dysfunctional relationship with food that you wouldn't have if you didn't diet. So another way to look at it is, would you have shame and guilt and tell yourself you can't have it if you didn't believe in food morality and dieting? Would you have to negotiate for food that, right? Because the whole just negotiating for the cookie, one, requires that you think that you can't have a cookie.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. So it's important that you see that. You wouldn't be negotiating for a cookie if you didn't believe that you can't have cookies. There was something wrong with it. The fact that you have to sit there and go, I deserve it, there's just one, I'll just eat one, which you know that's not going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're the emotion that's negotiating for it wants four. Say that again?
Yeah. And then it goes to, well, I'm just going to eat them all because
I've already ruined it. Because you've ruined it.
Look at them.
Yeah, what did you ruin? What did you ruin? Oh, the diet. Oh, yeah. Your chances of losing weight. That's right. Okay. So see how that works? So you wouldn't be even negotiating if there wasn't a diet. You wouldn't feel like you ruined anything if there wasn't a diet. So the whole diet is what's promoting the whole package of cookies being eaten. Right? Okay, but that's just the beginning. Would you have eaten that whole package of cookies if there wasn't the thought or idea that you could fix what it was doing to your body later?
No, that absolutely went through my head. Absolutely.
Well, I know. So rethink it now. If there was no way that this was going to get fixed with a diet, another implementation of that bubble of famine, would you do this? Would you be overeating all of it?
No.
You wouldn't. So the diet is actually the source of the negotiation for the food, the source of the guilt that you've ruined it, so you might as well eat the whole thing. There's no point to even restricting. And it's also the source of how you negotiate for eating the whole thing because you actually believe you're going to fix the weight gain and damages later.
Yeah.
Hold on. So you've got the... Oh, it's because you still believed in it. You still believe in health supremacy, thin supremacy, and you still believe you're a victim of your body. It's still there. Like I said, I think you transcended the idea that you need to be thin for other people's approval. That's just one thing. There's still the health righteousness that you've held on to, right? That's that orthorexic narcissism that's in there. And the fact that, and the fact that you just haven't seen clearly yet the impact that dieting has had on the consequence of what you're living in right now. The body you have right now is a consequence of how you've related to food because of the belief that your body sucks and the fact that you've relied on diets as the resolution. Clearly, the more you diet, what happens to your food intake? You've got two sides. Think of it as a diet sandwich. The I suck, I'm a piece of shit, I need to lose weight, followed by I should deprive myself. I'm gonna restrict, which means I should be eating now because that preparation for the famine. Then you actually impose the famine, of which creates this pressure to negotiate for food. Then you do negotiate for food. You overeat the food because you feel like you failed. Then you're gonna believe, okay, at some point I'm going to fix what the damages. So I don't have to worry about it right now, which increases your food intake like a binge, Now you're binging.
Yeah.
And would you binge if there was no food deprivation in any form? Exercise, purging, diuretics, starvation. There was no famine to fix it. Would you still be overeating if there was no famine to fix it?
No.
So let's just think about where this emotional relationship with food is coming from. Would you still have this emotional relationship with food to cope with your mom, to cope with your dad, if there was no diet to create the shame, the guilt, you shouldn't, you failed, or the illusion that my diet will rescue my body later? Like the dieting is your fall guy, right? It will take responsibility for my damages. It'll fix it. So it's your rescuer. So it's your persecutor and your rescuer.
Yep.
Get rid of the diet. Would you even be binging? Would you still be negotiating for food? Would you be overeating?
No.
The funny thing, too, is that does the diet actually fix the damages? I know when you're in there, you're convinced. Oh, yeah, it's so reliable. I can diet lighter and this will all get fixed. So right now, I don't even have to feel bad or shame or guilt. So you get this euphoria from the freedom of having to feel bad. But you think the actual diet works. When has the diet actually worked to fix the damages? Never. How often have you actually gambled with a never working solution, thinking that it'd actually get rid of the weight gain that is inevitable from eating a whole bag of cookies?
Many times.
Right? I mean, think about that for a second. What are you gambling with? What is the likelihood that you're going to implement this next diet and it's going to actually remove the weight? Especially when... Go ahead.
I'm gambling with my body, for one thing.
You are. So when you look in the mirror, how much of what you see and how much of what you're experiencing is directly linked to that gamble that has never worked, that isn't working. That's actually why you're shoving your face full of food.
Yeah, all of it.
So when you look at your weight and your ailments and whatever it is, would you say that it is being actually promoted by this belief that you need to restrict food to fix it?
Say that again?
When you look in the mirror and you feel the limits that you're feeling so sorry for yourself for, is it the body's fault that it's this way? Did it do this to you?
No.
I want you to think of how many times you've told yourself, I'm going to restrict food. I should restrict food. I shouldn't eat that. How much of those feelings are a part of your current situation, physical situation?
All of them. And lately I tell myself a lot, I shouldn't be eating it.
And how has that impacted your actual food consumption?
Oh, it made it go up, and it's been I feel the guilt and remorse and failure.
And where is that coming from? Where is that I shouldn't be eating this coming from?
My husband.
Well, hold on a second. I mean, I get that. I kind of knew that relationship was there, like the evil stepmother relationship with your dad. He's got a ruler. He's going to smack your hands. Does he even realize that relationship is actually promoting what he's afraid of? Probably not.
No, because he's so able to control his intake, and that he seeks it should just be that way for everybody.
That's hilarious. What an ignorant douchebag. He has no idea. Does he? I mean, seriously. I mean, imagine him, put him in your body, and then let's see how intense his rules and restrictions work. Because the more shame someone has about their body. Okay, are you ready for why he sucks? He shouldn't be controlling. His rules and regulations are so misguided and so wrong for you. Okay, so imagine he has shame. Where's his shame? Does he have shame attached to any of his body?
To his?
Yeah.
Yeah. He does.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Let's just think about this here. How much shame does he feel about himself? And does he have someone else shaming him about his body? Telling him he shouldn't be...
He's feeling a lot older than me, and he's been saying that a lot.
Okay, that's not shame. That's not shame at all. Shame is, I am a terrible human being. I am a worthless piece of shit. How?
No, he doesn't feel that.
I know. I'm like, he doesn't have any shame. Clearly he has no shame. Period. So let's get some clarity around this so you can see how inappropriate it is that you're using him as a guidepost. Imagine he has shame. And equal amounts of body fat to lose. And he has someone judging him for his failures. And guilting him constantly. So he doesn't have all that. Does he? No.
No, he doesn't. No.
So there's that. Okay. And really dangling your relationship around your performance. Does he have that? Mm-hmm. No, he doesn't. No. Not at all. So really, how much emotion does he have invested in his food restrictions? And pressure. How much pressure? How much pressure does he have?
He doesn't have any pressure.
No, because he doesn't have someone who supposedly loves him acting like a parent, dominating and telling the child what to do. Okay, so the other thing is keep in mind, how much weight, just be honest, how much weight do you believe you need to lose to feel this is good enough? How much weight? Be truthful. Don't give me what you think I want to hear. What's the golden number where you'd be like, oh my God, that would be amazing?
185.
So, and even then, really, what should it be?
By the health industry,
yeah, like,
it should be like 160.
Yeah, so let's get real. 160. Because even if you get to 185, you're going to go, I have to be thin. I have to be thinner. I can be thinner. It's right there. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. So that's what I mean by be honest. It's like, yeah, you're being conservative right now with that 75 pounds. Would you agree it's more like 100 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay, does he have 100 pounds to lose? Does he have 100? Do you know what that does to the pressure and the length of time you have to live this way? The pressure and the length of time. Just think about that. Think about how long you have to live in that bubble of famine. How long do you have to live in your famine?
I'd rather eat till I die than to live in that.
Okay, but just keep this in mind. I get that. But how long does he have to live in his bubble of famine? And does he feel horrible about himself if he eats a cookie?
No. Because he would restrict.
Yeah, but when he does have a beer, when he does have a cookie, he might be hiding it from you, first of all, just so you know.
I know.
because he's on his high horse of why can't you do it? So he's got to hide when his natural humanness shows up. Just really think about how inappropriate this is and wrong on so many levels. He is thinking he's doing the right thing, but this, oh God, he probably doesn't like me. He probably thinks, why are you still working with Robin? She's terrible. For reals.
He doesn't understand why it's taking so long for me to get better. But he doesn't realize how much better I was.
Yeah, before he got in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But you've given up your freedom. It's like you're not, I don't know. I can't make you take ownership of this. You're more conscious. You're more aware of how this works. But clearly you still believe maybe I should go back into the diet world. It's been so positive for me. I should keep on doing it. Go back into the cult. Because at least I have control in the cult. But let's just ask that question. Do you really have control when you're in that space?
No.
How does it feel? The pressure. How do you feel? How's the pressure that you have to lose weight feel? Let's just feel that for a second. Tell me how that feels.
Like a tea kettle ready to explode.
And how do you feel? How do you think that impacts your relationship with food? Because it projects onto food. That pressure means you can't eat. You can't have that cookie. You can't have a piece of bread. You can't eat.
Yeah.
Do you have guilt no matter what when you eat? Is there anything you don't have guilt about? The reason why I ask is because as people get bigger and bigger, what I found is they just, all eating is bad. It becomes all bad because of the pressure gets so high. And they start to think, I have to, because I binged, I have to not eat. I shouldn't be eating at all. And if I do eat, it's like you become highly scared of food, which means you're failing all the time. One piece is you might as well binge. So the binge eating goes up and up and up. It just gets bigger and bigger. So you see how it kind of has a snowball effect as you get fatter, as you get more fat,
yeah.
And the pressure gets higher,
yeah.
And the restrictions become more restrictive. The famine becomes longer. Don't forget, it's a longer famine too. The bigger you get, the longer that's famine, and the more perfect you have to be. So that's where that catastrophizing occurs around the cookie. I might as well eat the whole bag.
Yeah.
Right? And that's how this happens. And people don't realize that type of pressure, it's like your weight is in your hands to control. What would happen if we just removed you from your body? What would happen to your body? Meaning your body was given all control. You eat when you're hungry, you eat whatever is there, and you eat until hunger goes away. And it's because you see how the body controls that.
It would eventually get to, what I want to say, homeostasis.
Yeah, on its own.
Yeah.
Without you.
Without me? How can it do that?
Right? It's, but the problem is when someone approaches the body in fear of the body, the fear is what's directing what you're doing. And your fear comes from thinking the body can't handle itself. Do you see how you're playing God at this point? Like you know more than the body. And how's that working out? Because clearly there are these mechanisms, psychological mechanisms in place, right? To where you clearly have impulses to eat, that your way of approaching it is stimulating.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe your way sucks. Maybe your way is terrible. Because you've never thought maybe saying I can't eat cookies actually stimulates the desire for eating cookies. And when you moralize it as bad, when you add the morality like it's a religion, you're going to binge. Because you believe I'm bad. I failed. So in that case, what's the point of restricting? You failed. It's like hell is hell. It's all or nothing. So I'm in hell today. So what's the point of trying to restrict and get out of hell when there's no way to get out of it? For some weird reason, you sleep at night. That's like penance, and then you get a fresh do-over in the morning. So you reimpose a more strict cookie diet.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insanity. You know, but you're kind of backed into a corner because what do I do, Robin? My body's gotten bigger the more I've dieted. I need to diet some more.
Because it works so well.
But now I'm bigger. So I need to keep on dieting. So do you see how it's like, seriously, dude?
Yeah.
But because you think your body is the persecutor. But what's really persecuting you? What truly is causing all of this insanity? Is it the dieting, or is it the belief? The belief that your body is bad.
Yeah, I see what you mean, yes.
So it's the only thing is that, yeah, it's the belief. And where you have a choice is to recognize that if you keep on feeling bad about your body, if you continue to feel bad about it, whether it's bad about your health, bad about your size, bad about the fact that you've really failed horribly at keeping it in control, bad about any of it, if you continue to feel bad, even if you get so large you can't walk, if you feel bad about that, what is going to continue to happen?
I'll just continue to
need a diet.
Yeah.
And then what will happen? You're going to binge.
Yeah.
So do you see how it's like, okay, people focus on the binge as the problem, but really you wouldn't be binging if there wasn't the diet before, during, and after. You wouldn't be dieting before, during, after, all throughout if you didn't feel bad about your weight. You didn't feel bad about your, right? And you wouldn't feel bad about your weight if you didn't have fear about whatever belief told you you're going to die. But you also have the addition of your husband kind of holding a gun to your head.
Yeah.
You better lose weight.
Yep.
It's complicated.
Very.
Super complicated when it comes to this stuff, but it's really not when you see it this succinctly. So the first thing I would recommend is completely abolishing all diets, because the dieting is enabling and creating this issue with food. Once you get rid of the diets, you're going to have to face your fear around food, because again, if we get rid of diets, if we get rid of all of this, like, you can't have, that's good, that's bad, you shouldn't. If we get rid of all of that, that is the dieting. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Even just, I shouldn't eat that, I can only have this much. That's all dieting imposition. That's all that coming from the morality of what's right and wrong with food. If we completely black that out from existence, what fear arises for you?
What was that last thing you said?
What fear arises?
I can't think of any.
Well, that means you're not going to lose weight.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But that's the illusion, right? If I completely remove, this is the illusion of fear. The funny thing is if we get rid of diets 100% from every angle, the judgment, the shame, the health concept of it, and you now get to sit at the table of abundance forever, all the time, every time you're freaking hungry, you have everything available to you, no shame, no guilt, no anything. What actually is going to happen to your relationship with food?
It will be normal.
Yeah. You'll end up eating far less. You won't have this anxiety and stress, which is already increasing your blood sugar. Do you remember the conversations about this fear and anger and what it does to your blood sugar?
Yeah.
Imagine you're applying that to food. Fear of food. So now you've got twice. So you have fear of that cookie. Your blood sugar is already being stimulated because you're treating it like it's a bear. You eat the cookie. Plus your digestion slows down because your body's told, oh my God, you're being attacked by food. You need to stop digesting so that we can put the energy into our extremities because it thinks you're going to need to run from it. So not only is your blood sugar high so you have the energy to run from the cookie, but now your digestion is slowed and you eat the cookie and then a whole bag. That's from the diet. That's the fear mongering of food from the diet. You wouldn't have that whole entire bombshell if you didn't believe in the morality of food, as if food is the tiger coming to kill you. Right? My point being, if we eliminate all dieting, you have to face the tiger of food. And it's only a tiger or a bear or a predator because of what? Why is food a predator?
Because of dieting.
Because your body is a predator. So the only reason why food is actually, food is going to kill me, is because you believe your body is bad. Does that make sense? You're right.
Yeah.
Food actually creates all this stimulus, or the dieting actually creates a stimulus to binge. It supports the binge 100%. You wouldn't binge, period, if there wasn't some framework around dieting on food, right? Food is the predator. The only reason you're binging is because you are a bad person and the predator killed you, so you might as well eat everything you can before you go back into hiding from it, right?
Yeah.
I get that. We're going deeper now. Why is food a predator? Why is food bad? Why would someone believe food is bad and then impose the diet?
Because it will make them fat.
Because your body is bad, yeah. Because it's not just making you fat, you are fat and you can't eat it, right? It's both.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So food is your predator because your weight is your predator. Your health is your predator. So, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what your fear says. Are you following me or are you confused?
No, I'm writing it down.
Okay, well, I got a video of this. I've got this on camera, so.
Okay.
But it's good to write it down too. So you wouldn't be afraid of food if you weren't afraid of your body.
Okay, yep.
Right? Because you're afraid of your body, food is now a threat. Because you're afraid of your body and you feel bad about your body, food is now your threat. Because the perception is that food is what causes this.
Right.
That's keeping out a huge conversation, isn't it? Food causes this.
Yeah.
Really? Hold on a second. Because the imposition of the dieting is actually supporting how you're eating. Why are you eating this? Why are you binging? Is it the food?
No, it's just
that's the
shame around.
I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't eat that. That food is bad. Right? So do you see it's like, well, food isn't the enemy. Clearly because there is a context or story behind how I'm relating to food, which is why you're eating it excessively. Why are you overeating food? Why are you binging on cookies? Is it the cookies that are making you fat and inflamed? Or is it the binging on cookies that is creating a problem?
Yes, the guilt around the binging.
And why would you have guilt? Where is that coming from?
From thinking I'm unhealthy.
Well, the dieting, right? You wouldn't impose that if you didn't have the diet to tell you the food is bad, but you wouldn't be imposing the diet if you didn't feel bad about your weight.
Right.
So everything, as confusing as that sounds, everything is based on the fact that you feel bad about your weight. Okay. So what would happen if we right now, in the state your body's in right now, removed every aspect of dieting that exists. Every shame, every fear, every you can't eat that, bad food, every concept of healthy, righteous food, clean food, every concept out there is removed forever. And you are to eat when you're hungry and eat adequately. What would happen?
What's your... It felt like the weight was lifted.
Well, right. But what does your fear say? That's the reality. What you just brought forward is, oh my God, it would feel amazing. Because there's no strain, there's no distortion, there's no pressure, there's no perfectionism anymore. That perfectionism is crazy, isn't it? Don't you agree that perfectionism in the dieting, the idea that there is no wiggle room, there's no breathing room, is completely promoting the binge eating. Because as soon as you crack, you failed. That's perfectionism. Right?
Right, yeah.
So as soon as we remove, all of that, it's like, oh my God, I'm not walking on eggshells. That changes everything. But what happens to the fear? If we get rid of all restrictions permanently and forever, what does that mean for you in your body?
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Well, what does your fear say? What does the fear say? Let's just imagine, what would your husband say if we said, she's never going to diet again, it's over?
Oh, the fear would say, oh my God, you're failing.
You're going to die. You piece of shit.
Yeah, you're going to die because you're going to get fat.
Yeah, and you can't control yourself with food.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because when you impose the diet, that's when you lose control, right?
Right.
So the fear would say you're going to have this disease, you're going to die, you're going to have a miserable death. Right?
Yeah.
So then what we do is you compare that illusion of a miserable death with physical ailments but there's freedom. There's no pressure. You don't have to, your whole focus, like life focus, is no longer self-centered and self-preserving and spiraling out of control and constantly tiptoeing around food, but then failing at all times, binging mostly every day, if not at least 3 to 4 times a week. Sometimes multiple times in a day. I mean, you've got that with this illusion that you're going to be happy. Right? Or you just accept the body. What que sera, sera. What is God's will? I'm going to let that happen. And I'm done taking the reins. And there's freedom now. No focus on food. Food becomes here nor there. The table of abundance is there. There's no shame or guilt. You're no longer living in a cult mentality around food. Literally, religious cult mentality around food is gone. How's that feel?
It's like a freedom.
You can ignore your weight. How would that feel?
Yeah, I mean, that would be wonderful. Yeah, because I have a lot of guilt around my weight, and to be able just to let that go is like a huge weight to been lifted.
Right? Don't you? No. Yeah. I mean, it's like, because you could look at your weight right now, and say, why is this the way it is? How did you get here? Is it because you were ignoring your weight and didn't care about your weight and were eating what you wanted, didn't feel bad about it, and just had no willpower? Is that how you got here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that's not true. That's not how you got here. The whole bag of cookies you ate yesterday, is that because you didn't care? No willpower? You just don't want to think.
Oh, no.
I know. I'm like, are you kidding me? I just fed you the lie that's been told. You believed it.
No.
You believed the lie. Think about it. Is that how this happened? Really? You just don't care about your weight? Isn't that the opposite of what's been going on? You just told me I have so much guilt about my weight. Isn't that a sign that you care too much? I mean, guilt around weight? How about going and stealing and slashing tires and stealing shit and killing other farmers' animals so that you look better? Now that's worthy of guilt. You feel guilty about your weight. Just consider that. Guilt and shame. I would argue that you are more ashamed about your weight. You might as well have killed someone for fun.
Yeah, I would agree. It's more shame.
Okay, so going back to what I said a minute ago. Did you get here because you just didn't care? Is that how you got here? Really express the truth. When you look in the mirror and you see your weight and you see your legs and you see the size and you feel how hard, the limitations that are here today. How did you get here? Would you say that you've cared way more about your weight than anybody should ever? You've been defined more about your body than anybody should ever be defined by their body. And then given the task to starve yourself while living in abundance, and then felt ashamed when you had a hard time with that. That's how you got here, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's not because you didn't care enough. You've cared way more than anybody should care. You've cared so much that it's a problem.
Yeah.
Just think about that.
That's all I care about.
I know. Even when we had that respite, you still cared about your weight. You still felt bad about your weight. You still thought that it was a problem. You still think that it's the source of all these issues. But guess what you refuse to actually solve? What are you refusing to look at? It's your business. I've worked with you long enough. I'm telling you right now, that is not negotiable. And guess what? If that's not negotiable, you're going to have these physical ailments. How can you not, with that much trauma coming from a business that you're running? You have constant trauma in that environment. Coming from your dad, coming from the fact that you're supposed to perform like your father expects you to. I mean, that's trauma. You have complex PTSD from that environment and that relationship.
Yeah.
So, but that's not negotiable, right? So if that's not negotiable, you might want to just accept these issues.
And I talked to my husband this weekend. No, it was a week. I can't remember. But I did talk to him and told him I can't handle it. And we did have a very good, long talk about how to structure the business and take some pressure off of me.
That's good.
Because that's where it all comes from.
I know. And then did that in the, was there also the conversation around, we have to focus on fixing our weight. We need to get healthy.
So I can avoid that elephant in the room.
I have found the most impact or the most expansive type of recovery has come the moment that people really see the destruction that feeling bad about their weight has made in their life. We can blame the dieting all we want, but the fact of the matter is when people truly believe that having more weight, having more body fat is catastrophic, the more they catastrophize that, of course they're going to catastrophize food. Can you see? That's like, oh, well, of course they're going to do that. That's logical, right?
Yeah.
But what they don't take into account is how that impacts the psychology that we've been wired to since the beginning of time to seek to feel secure with food. So as soon as you say food is bad, you're now insecure with food and you're going to have problems, right? But none of that would have occurred if you look in the mirror, what you need to see. And when you see it clearly, this will be over so fast. The reason this has happened is because you have felt bad about your weight at all sizes.
Yeah.
And as you felt bad about your weight and health, the need to restrict food has gotten more intense. The more intensely bad you feel about your weight, the more intense the restrictions are. Feel this. The more intensely bad and ashamed you are about your weight, the more intense the restrictions are with food, the more perfectionistic your restrictions need to be. Because you feel that bad about your weight. Right?
Yeah.
What's the likelihood you're going to binge the more perfectionistic you are about restricting food?
Oh, like it goes up.
It's 100%. It's like 100%, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at yourself in the mirror, what you need to see isn't badness. It's really just a reflection of how bad you have felt about your weight and how that has impacted your relationship with food. So again, when you compare yourself to your husband, this is why he's so not qualified to guide you. He does not have shame about his weight. He might feel like it needs to be fixed and it's time to take control over it, but he doesn't have shame. He doesn't feel like a terrible human being because of it. And he's not perfectionistic, I guarantee you, about it. He's just that way with you because he might think you need that type of you might need that type of parenting, not realizing that it's like pouring gasoline on the pressure for you to eat cookies in the car while he's not around so he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did have that thought that it's a free day because he's not with me.
Of course. That's what happens with children, with their parents. So when children have parents that are this way, I mean, seriously, go back to your childhood dieting. Doesn't this feel like reminiscent?
Yeah.
But you're an adult. What are you, in your 40s? Are you in your late 40s?
I'm 52.
Okay, you're 52 and you're still being parented by someone who's fucking clueless.
Oh my God. I'm writing that one down.
Now, my goal is not to make you a victim of your husband because he actually is, this is loving. This to him is loving. Because this is all because in his mind, he wants you to feel better. He wants you to feel better. And he thinks that by losing weight, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
And that I'll be healthier.
Yeah. Oh, I put quotes around the healthy because that's not healthy at all. This is not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's sweet. It's really sweet. It's kind of like, my parents living in a cult, wanting me to go to church, thinking I'll feel better about myself going into their cult mentality church. You need to repent, Robin, and pray and pay your tithes and you'll feel better. Oh, okay. Not realizing that it's that mentality that's creating the shame that I'm trying to escape and suicidal for. Maybe they shouldn't recommend I go to the church that is teaching me the beliefs that are the source of my shame for why I have this eating disorder to try to cope with. That makes sense? For me, that was how this worked. So it didn't. So, you're going back and you're thinking I should lose weight. How's that worked out for you? The weight that you have, would you agree, is directly a consequence from the shame about your weight and then the imposing of the famine, the artificial famine, while you're surrounded by food, which is not going to work.
Yeah.
And you realize it doesn't work for 95% of everybody. I mean, there are studies on this, and it has shown statistical significance. 95% of all people doing this are sucking at it. Isn't that an indication that this type of solution sucks? I mean, when do you look at the solution and go, that solution sucks? Why are we continuing to support this cult mentality when 95% of all people doing this end up with eating problems and getting bigger and getting bigger?
Because someone's making a lot of money.
Well, no one's questioning the idea that your body is bad and food is bad. No one's questioning those two things because they seem logical. That's the problem. Of course, you feel bad about your weight. You should feel bad about eating. Yeah. Maybe that's the problem.
And when you asked earlier, do I feel bad about food other than cookies? I feel bad about anything that I eat.
I know. That's why I asked the question, because when it gets bad, when people feel like claustrophobically bad about their weight, all food is bad. Anytime you eat, it feels like you've done something wrong. Now the food, not only is your body the enemy, but all food is the enemy. So you're living in constant fight or flight. How's that working for your inflammation?
I was going to say, that's why my eyes are not full of sugar when I wake up in the morning.
I'm just saying, on top of that, you're dealing with all of the strain in your work environment, perfectionism. And so, okay, Michelle, if we were to, what I'm suggesting, I can't make you do it, and I'm not the person that's, I'm not dictating anything, but what I want you to look at is how would your symptoms, how would you feel if we were to completely abolish all forms of dieting permanently for the rest of your life?
I feel free.
Yeah, and the moment you say, I want to eat a cookie because I'm stressed about my mom, you'd have to think about that for a second, right? Because there's no diets to fix. If you eat like 5 of them, there's no diet to fix it. So how many would you eat? Would you eat as many? There's no dieting?
No, I might not eat any at all.
Yeah, you might go back and forth and go, you know what? I have to take responsibility for these emotions because I don't have a diet in my back pocket to negotiate for the cookies or to, the whole negotiation for food. Because you have an emotion, you would have to think twice about, because you only do that because you think there's a diet to fix the damages. So how you relate to food has become very dysfunctional only because you always thought a diet would fix the damages. So if there's no diet to fix the damages, would you still negotiate for that food for that reason?
No.
So it's not just removing all diets. We're also removing the dysfunctional relationship that you've gained with food, that you've developed with food, only because you thought a diet would fix it. So now we have to, you have to take responsibility for the emotions that you've been avoiding by choosing to eat food excessively. So by removing all diets permanently and forever, it's not just the freedom, it's now you're responsible for the emotions you've probably become immature to handle because you've always had a shelter with food from them.
Yeah, a lot.
Right? I'll tell you what, that's the easiest part, to be honest with you. It's very easy to face these emotions. It's far easier to do that once you start doing it than it is to diet.
Yeah. And much less information on that.
And insanity and misery and binging is gone. Dieting basically says you can't eat that food. You can't eat that food. Well, what if we were to say you can eat that food if you want, but there's no way to fix the damages? Now, do you really want to eat that food, or should you face this emotion you feel insecure to handle?
Yeah, it's just like an instant of clarity came to me. Like, I would not have eaten it.
No, you wouldn't have. You would have said, I need to face what I'm feeling right now. The only reason you ate the cookies is because you said, at some point I will remove the cookies. So you see how dieting actually is not only promoting this dysfunctional relationship with food for emotional reasons, but it's promoting the binge eating, thinking that you're going to fix it later. It promotes the feelings that you have failed. Again, the religious cult mentality. This is like someone who's addicted to porn in a religion that says masturbation is the devil. What's the likelihood they're going to masturbate thinking they've already ruined it? They're going to masturbate all day long?
Yeah.
because tomorrow they're going to go abstinent.
Yeah.
What's the difference between you eating a cookie in the diet cult religion and someone masturbating in spiritual cult religion?
Absolutely not.
Nothing at all. Except for you're not allowed to eat a cookie. I mean, it is that radical. It is that radical what you're doing. No wonder you're crazy. Just get a grasp of that. A cookie.
Breaking the law every day.
By eating a cookie.
Yeah.
But that's an indication of how bad you feel about your weight.
Yeah.
Should anybody have that much shame about their weight, especially when this drama cycle is how it's occurred? I mean, this whole shame about your weight is why you have the weight you have, because it's promoting these diets that are radical. So really, the question is, should you feel this bad about your weight? If we could remove, so let's just imagine God came down and said, Michelle, you are wasting your life on something so stupid, completely wasting it. This is not your purpose. Your body and its health is not your job. It took thousands and thousands of years for evolution for this to be evolved and created through evolution. And you're playing God around it. You're wasting your purpose and the point of this lifetime, fixating on something so stupid. I've already taken care of it. And you're actually making it worse. So you are permanently free from this point forward from caring about your weight. It's pointless. You're going to die when you're going to die. Whether you're thinner or fatter. You're going to die when that point comes. So you are free forever from caring about your weight. I don't care if you're 280 pounds, 300 pounds, or 200 pounds, or 150. It's irrelevant to what your point is here. It is irrelevant to the point of your life that this body is giving to you perfectly. You're getting a perfect life with perfect consciousness, and you're wasting it, fixating on your weight and worrying about it. That is pointless. You're going to get nowhere. You're not going to achieve what you're here to achieve if you keep on doing it. You are, from this point forward, free from giving a shit about your weight in any condition. It is pointless. Being thinner is pointless. Being fatter is pointless. You are no longer to focus on it forever. How would that feel?
Relieving and a little bit scary to have to deal with my emotions.
Okay, so now you're getting, there's a reality check right there. Oh my God, if I don't fix it on my weight, then I have to deal with my life. Right?
Yeah.
So just get some clarity here. If you're not willing to deal with those emotions, how successful is your effort to lose weight going to be?
It won't be successful.
Yeah, you're just wasting your life and getting fatter.
Yeah.
All because you refuse to face those emotions. All because you refuse to face them and resolve them. So you see my point? I'm like, oh, this whole shit show is because you're refusing to face the truth of the life you've created with the business.
Yep.
That's what this whole shit show is all about. So you're literally causing more harm to the body because you refuse to face the truth. Because you're afraid of it. That's scary. I get that. I'm not saying I'm not guilting you. I don't want you to feel that way about that, but you need to see the clarity. It needs to be very clear to you.
Yeah.
That you're doing this as a distraction, as a coping mechanism, it's like, if I solve this, then I won't have to look at that. Well, how's the solving going in the body area? How's that working?
And food isn't the only distraction.
Well, of course. I mean,
shopping and
yeah. I mean, so and then there's all the guilt around everything you're doing. You need to tell this is where, Michelle, you need to tell yourself the truth. You can go to a psychiatrist, you can get on medication, you can talk to me. It doesn't fucking matter. None of it's going to work. None of it. Because what are we going to do to get you to face those emotions? What can we do to face those fears?
You can't.
I can't do shit.
Anything. I have
to. Correct. It's not my deal. Like, we can't do that for you. If I could say, okay, I'm going to take ownership of your karma, I'm going to go face those emotions for you. Well, then guess who gets all the benefit?
When you're done, give them back to me.
Yeah. It's like, okay, sweet, Robin. Well, now we're codependent and you need me for the rest of your life. That's not the goal. That's what you're doing with your whole body image shit. But the thing is, how are you doing with that? How's that working out? Is it successful so far? Are you getting thinner? Is that helping or is it making things worse? Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's like this. Now you've got this big, huge vortex, black hole from a body image on top of the crap that you refuse to face. So it's not working. You thought wanting to be thinner was going to help things, and it is worse. Your body is worse. Your health is worse. Your issues with food are 10 times worse. So that's not working. So if you want to get rid of this shit show on the left, maybe you should face the one on the right.
Yep.
That's what I had to do. Okay, so my shit show on the left was body image. The dieting, the obsessive compulsiveness that brought me so much darkness and hell. And the only way for me to let it go was to either commit suicide or to stop doing it. But if I stopped doing it, what would I have to face? Oh, all the shame and horror coming from the religious dogma. It was scary because I had to question all of my entire identity because it was brainwashed from childhood, right? It was made for me since childhood. And I felt like such a failure, such a loser, so incompetent. I couldn't handle it. But the funny thing is, the moment I faced it was the moment I realized I didn't want it anymore and I left it. It was the best thing I'd ever done in my whole life. No, I'm not suggesting that's what you do, but you might want to face it so that the solutions come to you. Unless you face those realities, you're not going to have a solution. You're not going to have any clarity around it. You're just like a child trying to not look at something scary. Well, just look at the scary thing. So at least you know what you're doing all this bullshit and hurting yourself for. You don't even know what you're hurting yourself for because you refuse to look at it. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. I went down and look at the scary thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, and then the thing is that I came to because I was suicidal was I'm about to commit suicide because I'm afraid to look at what's over here. So I'm gambling. I'm literally going to die out of some assumption that I can't handle this. But the truth is, what it's going to feel like to pull the trigger of the gun pointed at my head, how scared I'm going to be to do it, is identical to the fear I have looking at what I don't want to look at. So before I kill myself, maybe I should look at this first, because I'm making an assumption I can't handle it. And I'm going to kill myself refusing to look at it. So what if I just look at it? Feels like I'm going to die. Well, of course. But you know what that death was? It was the death of the dogma. It was the death of the indoctrination. It was like the clarity I got around the fact that I didn't like or believe any of that shit. And it was the source of a huge amount of mental illness. That's the clarity I got by looking at it. That it was fucked up, and no one should ever have to hold themselves to such high perfectionistic beliefs and to work so hard and for that just tiny little fragile limitations to define them as a failure. That's the narcissistic system that you're holding yourself to, that you're refusing to look at. You just have to look at it.
Wow.
And recognize that there's going to have to be change, but which one's worse? What you're doing and the horror of what you're doing, avoiding it,
or just facing it and making those changes? Which is worse? Well, you'd have to feel that. You'd have to feel that way, because if it's not worse, you should just keep on doing what you're doing. Right? Don't you agree? It's like the assumption is that facing this is so catastrophic that trying to lose weight and fix my weight, even though I know it's caused irreparable damage, that seems better. So at least I can have some sense of success. So let's just do that. Because that seems worse, or excuse me, less horrifying than the horror of facing these issues. So you could look at the decades and go, oh my God, nothing has been as bad as my fear of that. So, because I don't want to, that's not negotiable. This is like defining identity. And if I let that go, I will have nothing. So I'd rather live in a horror circus show with flying flames and, daggers coming at me and, like a horror circus, than to face those things. Well, there comes a point where living in the horror circus is so horrific, Dante's Inferno of horrorness, that would be a delight to look at those fears.
Yeah.
And at least for me, it was like, I'm going to kill myself anyways. I might as well do it because it's no different. I'm going to die either way. That's where I was. But I had to do that. I had to accept my body because I was coping with all that. So in order for me to get rid of that coping mechanism, I had to accept I'm going to be 500 pounds. I'm going to accept that no one's going to love me. I accept that I'd rather be alone because this is such a miserable, poisonous, toxic environment that I'd rather face, right? The death of the soul from the actual religious dogma. So when your coping mechanisms become so toxic and horrifying that you're forced to face the original issue, you're in a good spot. I know it doesn't feel that way, but it's like, so you can keep on living in this torture chamber thinking it's worth it, or you can let it go, and then you're left with that fear, right? It's like, oh my God, I'd have to face those emotions. Yes, that's what you would have to do to get freedom from the torture chamber. You either face pain or you suffer. Which one? There's no resolution here that's like winning, like blissful. It's either face pain and have the bliss of the freedom from the torture chamber, or avoid pain with the torture chamber. You know what you get because you've been living in this torture chamber. You could keep on going. You know it very well. Right? Say that again. It's like you're a slave. It is. Like in Pinocchio when all the kids at the fair and and they all turn into donkeys.
Yeah.
That's you. You become a slave to it. And the more you're there, the more fear you have of facing those emotions, the more it feels like I can't handle that. I feel like, I know for me, it felt like death. That's why I think it took suicide for me to finally face it, because to me they were equal at that point. You see what I mean? Like the suffering was so massive that I was willing to commit suicide. And at that point, it was like, well, there's no difference between all of this and finally facing this pain that I've been avoiding since I think I was like 4. I mean, it's been a cumulative pain. It wasn't, always that bad, and the suffering wasn't always that bad avoiding it, but it had to get so bad for me on the coping side that I was willing to die before I even faced the pain. And someone like yourself, now your way of coping right? And I could have easily been in your shoes. I could be 200 pounds heavier right now if I had been doing what you've been doing for another 20 years. But mine got so toxic and so horrible, I was willing to commit suicide at 20. So I faced it at a young age, and I didn't have the accumulative decades to become more and more obese from it. So now you have physical consequences from that toxic coping mechanism, right? So you've got to accept and forgive yourself. You've never really realized that this was going to be a permanent damage. You've always convinced yourself that diets work and you'll eventually lose the weight. Always. You never would have done any of this if you knew the truth or accepted the truth that it doesn't work and it never will work. Because diets were always your scapegoat to not have to face those emotions. So you can see why you clutched onto dieting so tightly. It's like your rescuer. It gives you that distraction, and it gives you this weird illusion that you're going to have a body image that's going to offset the fear, or, like it gives you a sense of autonomy from the hell of pain that you're avoiding. It's like, well, it would be like me thinking, hey, if I can control my weight and my house and my cleanliness, then I won't feel so bad about the religious indoctrination that's controlling everything.
Yeah.
Because at least I'll have some sense of autonomy. Me. I'll have some sense of Robin, which is not, it's funny because my sense of Robin was thinness and healthiness. Is that really me? Or is that just a new set of religious dogma from a different cult? Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I am going off. This is going to be good for you to listen to.
I'm glad we recorded it.
We have a ton of recordings. You can always go back through our text string over the years. Just start from the beginning. That might be good for you.
Yeah. I've listened to, I don't know, probably more. And I see now, my husband's been telling me this, but I didn't want to look at it, that I listen to books all the time, so I don't have to do my own head. I don't have to think about things.
Yeah, you're just, you have made this pain not negotiable. It is not negotiable to look at it.
Yeah.
It's probably going to feel like you're going to die if you face it. I just want to give you that warning.
Well, that lately I've just been at the point where I want to die, I just don't care.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So maybe you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. Because if you lose, and I will tell you this right now, Michelle, I'm going to tell you, it's going to feel like you can't handle it. It's going to feel like it's going to overtake you. It's going to feel like it will decimate you into non-existence. It will feel like you will not exist.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. I'm telling you the truth. That's what it felt like for me, and that's what it has felt like for other clients who've had to do this to escape. You and I are a lot alike. In the I can work, I can do anything. You're right. You are you've won the workhorse trophy, okay? You won. It's amazing to me just how incredibly powerful survival mode can be. It's like you've lifted a car off your children for decades every day at work. Ah!
Yeah.
So, but what this takes is the opposite. Nothing. You are to do nothing. That's what you've been doing is something. So this pain that you don't want to face, the way to face it is to do nothing. You are not to move a finger. You surrender to it. It is like falling, free falling. That's what you do, is you free fall. It's like being seaweed in the ocean when the waves are crashing. What should you do? Nothing. Seaweed does nothing. It will feel like you're going, it is going to feel like you're gonna, it's like getting murdered. It's not just I'm dying. Because if you were actively dying, you'd probably be grateful, right? This is different.
Yeah.
It feels like an outside source is going to obliterate you. And it's going to manifest physically. Your heart's going to be beating into your neck. Your hair is going to be standing on end because it feels like a threat, like the Grim Reaper. That's another visual. The Grim Reaper's been chasing you for a long time, and you're denying that truth. What if that is the will of God? And because you're running from it, you get to suffer in hell. I know this seems really morose, but that's what it feels like. I'm just speaking from the truth of the darkness, that it feels like dark energy is going to kill you. That's what it feels like. Even though you're living in dark energy that is toxically horrifying, it is hell. You've been living in hell because you refuse to face reality, which feels like the Grim Reaper. So if it is the will of God, if you want to believe that, the will of the universe, that this thing is supposed to come get you, why aren't you just letting it happen? Just let it happen. If you're not willing to, you get to keep on suffering. What do you have to lose?
Yeah. I feel like right now suffering is not an option.
Well, how much longer can you do it?
Not a lot.
How about, can you do it today again? Can you suffer today again? Think about how about tomorrow? How about another 2 weeks? Well, what is this pain going to feel like if you wait 2 weeks to face it? It is exactly the same. So you either do it now or you do it. Are you going to be ready in 2 weeks?
No.
Well, think about that for a second. If you're not ready now, what is it going to take for you to be ready in 2 weeks? How about 2 months? How about 2 years?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's going to be painful when you face it. And you're never going to be ready because it always sucks. And it actually gets worse the more that you avoid it, right? Don't you agree? It's gotten more scary, more intense. Yeah. So the longer you wait, the more intense it's going to feel. So you can either feel the pain now or you can feel it later. All that means is you get to expend the energy and the fatigue for the next, until you face it, you got to keep on running in that rat wheel.
Right.
Avoiding it.
Yeah.
So maybe you should just force yourself to face it. The thing is that I knew when I got this clarity around here's a direct exit right now. It's almost like, here it is, Robin. You asked for help. You called for help. There's the exit. No one can take it but you. But I'm going to have to die. It feels like you're going to die. I feel like I can't handle it. I feel like a weak nothingness. Yep. You got to do it with your weakness. Oh, and I could just see it clear as day. And it was like, fuck it. I put the gun to my head, which is going to feel just as scary. Or I just face this pain. And what if I can't handle it? Well, then you got to experience that. Because you're clearly avoiding that feeling of can't handling it, are going to die. So which is worse?
Yeah.
Am I even making sense, or do I seem like a lunatic?
Oh, no, like, it's like, every time before when I thought I've got it, I understand, I know what I need to do, but this time it's like, I really know what I need to do. Yeah. And I think this past week, like, I've been coming to this because when I've tried to listen to podcasts or to books, it's just like,
it's not going to soak in.
Like that. Yeah, like, I just turn them off because it's just like too much chatter. Yeah,
well, it's what is it that's going to get you to face that pain, that feeling? What is it? Who can no one, like I said, there's not me, there's no podcast, there's no psychiatrist, there's no drug that's going to make you face that.
Yeah.
What antidepressant is going to make you go, okay, I'm going to face that and I'm going to feel it. Yeah.
That's so funny because the other thing my husband said was, I understand that you need to go have this med review done. But Michelle, how's that going to fix what's happening? And I was like, he said, you can't depend on a pill. You've got to figure this out yourself.
I get that. But look at, would you rather take pills than face this pain? Is that what you'd like to do? Let's just take a pill. I don't want to face the pain.
No.
So do you see how you're just not telling the truth? Not telling the truth to anybody.
Yep.
Maybe you should tell yourself the truth. That's really all that matters. It doesn't even matter what we talk about. The whole first hour and a half or hour of this conversation was about the reality of your toxic coping mechanism that's super fucked up. But you know what? Keep on doing it. So because it actually benefits you. It does. It benefits you because you don't have to face this pain. The moment I told you that if God came and said, this is not your purpose, you're not to do this ever again, it was like, thank the Lord. But oh shit, now I got to face that crap. Yeah. The crap you're not talking about.
Yeah.
You're not. So you know what I did?
No, I'm not.
So I know. Let's just distract Robin and everybody by how I'm coping. Oh my God, it's the diet industry's fault. Let's just be a victim of the diet industry. Those assholes. If what they said would work, I wouldn't have to face these issues. I wouldn't have to face the pain. God damn it, it's the diet industry's fault for failing. And now I have to face what I have refused to even discuss or talk about or even acknowledge. Because the diet industry is making me do it. You see what I mean? It's like, no. Just, this is it. Do you want to recover? Do you want your life back? Or do you want to keep on running away from the Grim Reaper?
Yeah.
No pill can make you do it. There's no amount of sedation that's going to make you do it. There's no amount of dieting. There's no amount of weight loss. What's weight loss going to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
No amount of food, no amount of cookies, no amount of alcohol, no amount of porn, no amount of gambling, no amount of shopping. It's still there. Grim Reaper's still there. Still there. It's like you're playing God. What if that Grim Reaper is there for a reason and it's got its job to do? And because you refuse to allow it to do its job, you get to live in hell and you're in hell. What if you just admitted the way that you've lived avoiding this emotion has been a big, huge failure? All it's caused is grief and terror in your life. And maybe you should surrender your God identity, saying, I refuse to face this. And you should just let the will happen. Let the will of the universe occur. And stop playing God. What if you die?
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to face. That's what it feels like. It's what it feels like.
Yeah.
This is very difficult to describe to anybody. This is that's why I'm like, do I seem like I'm crazy?
No, like, there was a higher level of clarity for me surrounding this whole thing with everything you said today. Like, this was incredible.
I can't make you do it.
No.
Your husband, no one can. Nobody can. So what I did is I actually laid on the ground and I forced myself to face all the layers of emotion. So what I did first, and again, it's different for everybody. What's going to, like, you're calling on the Grim Reaper is what it feels like. For me, it was, I'm going to eat food. Because my protection was the dieting and the micromanaging of food, and that was like my coping mechanism. So I intentionally, I think I've described this to you. You're in a white room that has all these doors, and they're all exits. All the ways that you exit, I shut them all. I didn't lock them. It's always a choice. You can always leave. You can always escape. You can always go to Facebook. You can always get on Instagram. You can always go shopping. You can always get online. You can go to Google. You can check your email 50 more times. You can, whatever. Listen to a blog or a podcast on intermittent fasting and how you can have an anorexic bulimic relationship with food, all of those are like doors that you've used in this room. And what you do is you shut everyone from option. Exercise, any type of escape, cleaning, organizing. I think we've talked about this before.
Picking up sticks.
Yeah, picking up sticks, picking at your face, wanting to get your hair cut, the layers and layers. You refuse because that feeling is going to come up. You know it. Today, it's going to come up. And with intention, I laid on the ground because I didn't want to move a muscle. And I wanted to belly up, surrender. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And the first few times I did this, I went into martyrdom. Boo! For me, I could just go work out. And I did. I got up and exercised. But I realized it's like
opening that door.
Yeah, I opened the door and left because I felt sorry for myself. And I realized I'm feeling sorry for myself because I'm finally going to face the problem. And I'm actually going to be removing the need for these doors. And I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to kill myself if I don't face this. I'm literally going to die. So I said, fuck that. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. And that was a door. Feeling sorry for myself, I did not realize was an exit. For me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not being made to do this. No one's forcing me to do this. I want to meet this Grim Reaper. I'm done. I am willfully calling for that death to show up. I'm going to visualize how I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump off a cliff. That's what this takes, is me visualizing what it's going to feel like to voluntarily kill myself by jumping off a cliff. I'm going to do it. No one's going to push me off and me cry and feel sorry for myself. And I visualized this feeling. And it was horrific. It was scary. My whole body was shaking on the floor. It felt like I was going to die. My limbs were going to be pulled off. I was going to be obliterated into non-existence. And I faced it and decided I would rather experience non-existence than to continue to do this bullshit. I'm done with hell. I'm done with hell. I'd rather just not exist than be in hell. And I had the courage to just lay there. And I cried. But I didn't cry in a self-pity way. It was just the real grief of just how pathetic everything was. Yeah, it was so pathetic. And that's not in a judgmental way. It was truly just sad. It was very sad.
I love that visual. Like, I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me to tears. Because I know that you have the same pathetic life.
Mm-hmm.
It's pathetic. It's very sad.
It is.
There's no reason this has to be this way, Michelle. There's no reason for it. You didn't deserve this. You didn't. There's nothing you've done. You've done the best job you could. You've always been honorable. There's no reason for you to suffer anymore. So maybe you should just meet the Grim Reaper and surrender.
I am so ready.
I will tell you right now, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've never been the same since.
Vulnerable.
I've never been the same since, yeah. And it's like, you'll never be the same if you actually do this.
I'm gonna do it.
And you just have to be open to the truth. And the changes that truth will bring.
I know where I'm going to do it.
Yeah, so just do it with intention. I'm not making you do it. Please don't feel that if you don't.
No.
If we talk again in a couple days and you're like, oh my God, I've been binging, I'm going to be like, that's okay. I get it. This is hard shit.
Yeah. No, I'm going to do it. I am so ready.
Okay, no pressure. No pressure, just in case.
I have nothing to lose.
I'm just letting you know this is
I got to lose?
horrifying. It's a horrifying experience. It's bad. It's as bad as you think it's going to be, and then it's not, because it's like temporary. It's very. And the other thing is a forewarning. It's going to feel permanent. It's going to feel like you're going to be in permanent pain. Permanently. So it's not just I have to experience pain. It feels as if it is permanent. What I felt in that moment for me when that permanence of pain rose, I realized, well, either that or I'm permanently in misery, running away from the pain.
Right.
So at least if I'm in permanent pain, I am relieved of the misery of the coping. I would rather.
Yep.
I made a choice. It was a distinct choice that is going to come up. It will feel permanent, and you have to feel that permanence. You don't just do, well, Robin said at this point I make a choice to make it permanent, and I say yes. No, this is not a memorized instruction. You will feel it, and you have to make the choice from the heart. Are you willing to have a permanent pain forever for freedom?
Okay.
Forever. It is going to feel permanent. But do you see why I'm like, you know what, Michelle, if you back down, it's okay. If you don't face this, I get it. That's why I'm putting no pressure, because you don't know what this is going to be like until you do it. So,
yeah,
no pressure. There's no right or wrong way to do this. But I would encourage you to freaking do it.
Okay, I am.
Let's look at our schedules.